Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Parks and Recreation Committee of the RTM to order at 7:33 p.m. Sue Ellen, do you have the list to call, or would you like me to call it?
No, I've got the list.
Okay.
So, Vincent Argenbaugh, I heard his voice earlier. So is he here?
Yes.
Yeah. Sarah Baldwin?
She's not here.
She's on vacation.
Okay.
Yes.
So I see Patty, Diane, Adele, Kim Kiner.
Here.
Alyssa Mahoney.
Here.
I see Cheryl, Sandy, Sheila Sherwood,
Here.
Andy Millar. Andy here? No.
I don't think so.
I heard. Okay, Shannon Silsby, I heard.
Thank you.
And Bill Van Loan. Here?
I don't see Bill.
I will.
Okay. Got everybody.
Okay. Okay. First on the agenda is the discussion and vote on the Park and Rec Arpa funding request. This has been ticking along since last summer. It began, I think, you know that the RN received or will receive, they've received part of it so far, $6,430,000, $414.32 from the American Rescue Plan grant funds. And there was a committee, the selectmen put together a committee, and the committee has made their recommendations. And the selectmen voted on February 28th to send those recommendations along to the Board of Finance, and then they will come to the RTM, would come to the RTM after that. So there were three sections of the three sort of areas where the funds are being sort of allocated. It was broken into health, infrastructure, and then sort of a group that was everything else. And I kind of like to read what the executive summary that Kate Bush sent out, because it kind of just explains the different reasons why some of the different expenditures are included. The approval will allow for the expenditure of funds on a number of projects. See the attached list, which we all have seen. Some of these projects are in direct response to our Some of them are direct response to our COVID response, or issues that came to our attention as a result of COVID. Others are much needed infrastructure projects. Some projects would provide budgetary relief in the upcoming fiscal year. Finally, there are projects that would provide future budgetary relief, moving much needed improvements in parks and other town properties forward. The ARPA Grant Funds Advisory Committee took great care in developing this list. In addition to being responsive to needs that developed or came to light as a result of the pandemic, the committee wanted to include projects that will be beneficial to all residents, some visible, such as improvements in parks, and some that may be below the surface, such as drainage improvements and sanitary sewer system improvements. So that's why we're here, and part of the Parks and Rec things are in this year's budget, and there's some things that are in the 6-year plan. So I asked Pam to come so that we could sort of go through them. A large part of it are the playgrounds, and we'll start with the playgrounds, because the playgrounds, number one, is in this year's budget, and we have talked about that already. But I had some questions. Well, by the way, I asked for questions and I got crickets, by the way, to use the Jack expression. And so I sat down and did a little brainstorming with myself and then Patty and Cheryl. and came up with a few questions that might help expand on why these are important and give us a little background information. And then I also mentioned it to Jack, and he shot me some questions too. So we shot all the questions and comments and whatever to poor Pam, and she's here, and we're going to walk through some of the stuff, okay? And then since you don't have it in front of you, I apologize. So I will send you the I will forward it to you, after the meeting, so that everybody will have it. And forgive me, mine are just bullet points. Others people's are very nicely written. So let's start with the playgrounds, Pam. That we have McGuan, that's $175,000, which was approved by the Board of Selectmen, and it's in the budget process for next year. Two playgrounds at Cherry Lawn and one at Baker. And so a little detail on the dollars associated with the playgrounds. Just give us a little background on how you came up with the numbers, I think is really.
Well, like any capital, first of all, good evening, everybody, and thank you for having me. On any capital project that we have to get numbers for, we would go to professional vendors and ask for budgetary numbers. And we have to really explain to these vendors that they're not necessarily getting the job. We need to try to, project figures for, the following year. So I got in touch with Game Time, which is a company that I've used quite often in my previous jobs, as well as here. Here in Darien, they do have equipment on some of the playgrounds that is done by Game Time and various other vendors. And he was kind enough to take a lot of time out of his day to go to each park, and he went through and gave details on the square footage, the fact that they have to remove the equipment, they have to put down whatever type of surface material you're interested in, which differs in all different cases as well, and also installation of everything. And it's very difficult for a playground company to put together any figure whatsoever without some sort of idea of what type of funding that the town is looking for, because it's the vast majority of, it's just vast in terms of how much equipment is out there. You can put together a very simple playscape that is very less challenging for children in the 5 to 12 age group, as well as the 2 to 5. Or you can put together something extremely challenging that has got a couple of different double decks. It has net climbers. It has, so it all depends on your space and exactly how much you want to spend, as well as surfacing is a big deal. I'm a big believer in, at this day and age, that we should be doing an ADA surface. So that would include either a poured in place or the tile as we have as McGuan. I think in this day and age, we can't ignore it. It should be open to everybody. And again, my opinion only. But so those are the numbers that I sought from Game Time, was to have some sort of ADA service, as we already do at McGuan. So we would never go backwards. We would stay with that anyhow. But the tiled surface is a bit more expensive than the poured in place, although the poured in place is beautiful as well. And so that's how I formed all those numbers, is through that one company. It's not guaranteed that every company would bid the same amount, but that's why you go out to bid too. So for instance, he came up with $175,000 for McGuan. He came up with $500,000 for both the 2 to 5 and the 5 to 12, all inclusive, $500,000, and Baker at $150,000. Now I had come in higher in my estimates for for McGuan and Baker. And he came back and said, look, based on the square footage, I think we could have a really beautiful playground for $150,000 rather than your suggested $175,000. So they actually came in a little bit lower. And the same for McGuan. I came in at $200,000 and he chiseled down to $200,000 based on the fact that it is a small footprint. So does that make sense? Everybody on board with me there?
Yes.
Okay. So then, he broke down the differences. Poured in place he's saying is about 20 to 25, but that includes the, sorry?
Square feet?
Square feet, 22 to 25 square per square foot.
Right, per square foot. But that includes demolition and installation. So, and then I think with the tiled, again, I got some final numbers, which were much more expensive than the final numbers of the poured in place. I can't recall the difference of square footage with those two, but it wasn't that much off. It just came in at higher for tiles. But anyway, that's how I came up with those numbers.
Okey-doke. Could you tell us the age of the current playgrounds?
Sure. So McGuan Park was installed in 2002. They had some issues with the poured in place surfacing from what I read back in the folders, had some issues and they had to reinstall the surface, and that was in 2008.
Okay.
And Cherry Lawn Park, both the toddler and the youth playground were installed in 2004. And then Baker Park was installed in 2003. Weed Beach was installed in 2012.
Hey, Bill.
Hello, sorry I'm late.
It's okay.
Adele,
Yes,
Pam, because I also think this is important. The estimates that you received are not, are recent estimates based on preparing for the budget. So I believe the letter that you had was November of 2021. I think that's important to know that they're not old estimates and that they're relatively new.
Correct.
I have a question. Can I ask a question, Adele?
sure.
Pam, regarding these playgrounds, I'm looking at the ages, and I walk my dog over at McGuan every day. And what exactly, which apparatus over there would you say would be for 12-year-olds?
That's a great question, Diane, because I too have been there and I've heard, all the time I've been here, we talked about that playground having a 2 to 5 and a 5 to 12, but the units look so very similar.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say if you were staring at the playground, my best guess on that, because I did not install that, would be that the closest one to the parking lot would be your 5 to 12 and the furthest one away would be your 2 to 5. And that's just by having experience with different equipment. It's a little bit lower to the ground, the one behind, and the one that's a little bit taller would be a little bit more challenging. So that would be what I would think that is.
I guess when I look at it, I don't think I see a lot of kids on it, particularly the past, well, today and some of these nice days. But I have a 12-year-old grandson, and I look at it and I think there's nothing he would play on here. It looks all a bit younger.
Well, to my point, Diane, there are so many choices. And at that time, if they had planned this with maybe say the funds that they didn't have, an additional $40,000, $20,000 to $40,000 to purchase the more challenging apparatus, they settled for less challenging.
Okay.
And
so we kind of know what we're getting. Would be kind of the same, similar to what we have now.
No.
In other words, we don't know that we're going to get anything more challenging than what we have now.
In my opinion, I would go for a more challenging for the 5 to 12 and a sweet 2 to 5.
Okay.
Apparatus, because
I have a quick question.
Okay.
My question is, I do not believe, having had raised 2 kids in this town, that 12-year-olds or even 11-year-olds or pretty much anybody in middle school plays on playgrounds. They don't have playgrounds at the middle school. They only have them at the elementary school, which goes through 5th grade. And does it make sense to invest in more advanced equipment for playgrounds that older kids aren't going to use. That was just my opinion, but I don't see a lot of younger kid or older kids going to the playgrounds, even at Cherry Lawn, and where there's no school and age involved, but they're just not there. So,
well, I don't think, Kim, that's a great question, but I don't think we're aiming it toward 12-year-olds. But there are certainly some 12-year-olds, and it's a very small percentage. I could agree with you, but they might be taking a sibling, and going with a sibling. And I certainly have witnessed some 12 and 13-year-olds at Baker Park because they were there with their younger brother, and they were climbing and doing some of the harder things on there while they had to spend their time at the park. But it's a standard age, which is 5 to 12. It's the industry standard age. So I wouldn't necessarily be saying that we would be getting a more challenging unit for the 12-year-olds. But our 5 to 10, some really want to be challenged, and it's more about being physical and getting outside and working those bodies. And that's why those climbers are so fun, because those wire climbers can take you to a different height, and you have to be very challenging to get down. So, again, everybody's a little different. So I think that's why we'll be working with our playground working committee and really start working that out in terms of what people really want to see there. It's not all about what my opinion is.
Maybe you could just take a second there and talk about that playground committee. I know this is taking it out of order of what we were going to talk about, but I do, just to elaborate on that point, I do know you had a meeting this morning, and you're going to have multiple more. Maybe I'm just answering the question right now myself. That and that's what you'll be talking about, right? What you want in the playgrounds with this group.
Yes, but number one, I think once we discover how much funding we will get approved, then we will, as a group, have to decide about priority. I think we already know the priority list, as we see here that McGuan was the next one on the list. And then, of course, Baker is the least used. So Cherry Lawn would be in line second, which follows along with our capital 6-year plan, and then Baker. But yes, then I think the idea is to really have a conversation around selecting some of the top industry playground companies and having them give us a design, the best of their best, of what they can produce with the funding that we have. And at that point, we can see what type of challenging or non-challenging, maybe some music features, but whatever this particular companies would be able to present to us would give us and they can give us 3D pictures of what it looks like. And some companies might have to deal with just manufactured wood chip because they can't afford, to put together a good package for port in place, say. I think that's what we're going to have to converse about.
Right.
We are looking for 3 more residents in town that are from different districts. So Patty Baumgartner said she'd work with me in terms of finding out what districts that we don't currently have on the committee. So we want to make sure it's very diverse and it well represents the town.
And with particular regards to the elementary schools. So we want to, make sure we're getting input from folks from Tokenique, Royal, across the board, Baker, because some, people do tend to go often to certain playgrounds based on their area, but also on the age of their kids. So one of the things we talked about in the meeting was doing tours of Meade Park, going up to the beaches at Fairfield, the playground facilities, and really touring kind of our peer groups, seeing what they have, talking to the folks at Meade Park in New Canaan not too long ago did a new port and play surface along with new playground equipment. And so we have contact names with the 2 people that helped to lead that. And I'm putting them in contact with Pam. So they'll be a great resource for us because they did it not too long ago. But to Pam's point, the companies that are giving this input, they're specialists on it. They know it's great. It's aged till 12, but Kim, I do agree with you, that we don't really see 12-year-olds on it. You see maybe, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we're a very sporty town, so we know kids are on sports fields and running around. But that doesn't mean we can't do some challenging things, and maybe we figure out where that one more challenging item fits, at which particular park it fits best. If one area we find is so little kiddie, then maybe we don't put the most challenging thing there, and then the kids who want to do things that are more climby on a higher end end up going to that park where we install it.
Yeah, I just jump in here for one thing, and then I see that Cheryl was trying to ask a question. But the difference between the maintenance of the manufactured wood chips and the port in place is significant. Yes.
Significant difference. And the manufactured wood chip, the company does claim that it's handicap accessible, but quite honestly, it is only handicap accessible when it's first pounded down and made really nice and tight. Once a storm comes in, our kids are running all over, it's no longer handicap accessible. It's loose, it's shifted. It takes a park a lot of time to have to remember to put an eagle eye to the surface material so that we're always to have safe conditions. But a place like Cherry Lawn, who has so many kids running through that playground, the surface material is continually shifted. You'll see that if you've ever been there, you'll see the 5-bar felt that's coming out from underneath the wood chips. That's because of kids running and playing and being kids. But it is really difficult. It's a really big charge for our guys to have to make sure that that's covered. Never mind weekends. So when there's divots and all that with those wood chips, it makes all the sense in the world to someone like me who's in charge of a park crew and playground facilities that the port in place and the tiles that would go on are fabulous.
And when it storms, we have a lot of runoff of the wood chips, a lot of runoff that have to be replaced versus when it storms, you don't have to, it doesn't affect the port and play. That's a big cost benefit analysis and a safety issue as well.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Yeah, I want to go back to McGuan for a minute. I'm a little confused, and I was reading Jack's questions and your answers to them. But on for $175,000, is this going to be a handicapped playground totally, or is it a little handicapped and for everyone else?
Well, today they built that to be completely ADA accessible.
Exactly.
So I would anticipate we would do the same thing. We never want to go backwards, right? We want to be able to have a wheelchair flow freely on that surface. Okay. And I would suggest that we consider doing that in all the playgrounds. There's no reason why someone in a wheelchair would have to only go to one place in town. It should be accessible for all.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that, because I was a little confused as to which way we were going there for a minute when you were talking about climbing and things like that. Some children are not capable of doing that. Children are capable of doing that. So
of course. Yep, and to your point, Cheryl, it's a really, really good discussion point, because although the surface is ADA accessible for wheelchairs and all sorts of people on a special needs spectrum, even McGuan, like the playground units, the only thing that makes them compliant as ADA is their landing zone. The surface is phenomenal because it makes someone in a wheelchair or other special needs be able to walk, roll, stroll throughout the whole thing. But in terms of gaining access to the actual climbers, the ADA accessibility only, you need to be compliant only by adding a little loading dock, which in my opinion is just so minimal. But we have it, we all have to do it, but real true ADA playgrounds have a much bigger footprint that McGuan allows. So they did the best they could with the space that was allowed. But typically a big ADA compliant, 100% compliant ADA playground has a big footprint. We could do a much better job at Cherry Lawn because it's so much bigger.
Right, but do you think you can do a nicer job at McGuan? If we expand, because there is area to expand to the right. If you're looking at it from the parking area and looking into McGuan, we could go over to the right and we could go over to the left a little bit. We had talked about that in our walkthrough in October. So are you looking to expand it a little bit to make
That
it?
would be my hope. That would be my hope, that we would be able to do more for a handicap. But the
Okay.
equipment is more expensive, but we'll do everything we can in terms of letting whomever we choose put together as many things, elements for handicap as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Jack, you had a question?
No, I actually have a statement. So I just want everyone to understand, because Pam, you alluded to what our appropriation will be. This ARPA resolution that we're doing, you have to think of it as being very similar to the capital resolutions that we do at budget. We're going to give a big number for what we have there, but all of the list of projects, not only for Park and Rec, but for the health, for the grants, for the loss of revenue, all of those smaller projects are being appropriated. And that's the amount of money that's there for that particular initiative and project. Now, similar to the normal course of business, and Pam and I were just briefly talking about it, if McGuan is at 175 and you find out, oh, it's going to be 190, then Pam would be responsible for going back to the Board of Selectmen to get the appropriate appropriation for that increase, then go back to the Board of Finance, determine if whether or not we're paying for it out of the small contingency we have. We only have about 120,000 there. And if it's a special appropriation, then it comes back to the RTM, and then you have the normal 10-day wait. So what we have here, the 500,000 for Cherry Lawn, the 175, the 20,000 for water fountains, 10,000 there, and some of the larger ones, that is the appropriation. So that's what we're going to be voting on. And the only thing that I'm not anticipating F&B is going to do any changes. So it matters what goes on the Board of Finance. But other than that, that's it. So if something comes under, I know in Cherry Lawn, there was a discussion of reconfiguring it, which might save some money based upon how it's currently laid out. But so let's say 20,000 is saved. That goes into the contingency. There will be reporting going on to the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen so that we will know where we are on these projects. Some of them are farther along than others. And so there'll be a significant good control on the grants. There's a whole other thing. I won't bore anybody with that, but there's a process for grants. But I want everyone to understand we're voting on the totality. And once this is approved, the 500,000 that we have for Cherry Lawn, that's the appropriation for Cherry Lawn. If it comes in more, Pam knows what procedure she has to do to get more money. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's accurate. That's accurate. Pam, that reminds me of another discussions that I think Jack and I have had was the your sort of timeline. The timeline to begin with was obviously because your 6-year plan. So would you hold to that, or would you do any of these concurrently, together at the same time? Or do you know?
I think it's a stretch to say the same time, but again, it's a great talking point for the group, the working group. Is it possible to do all three and give, go out to bid and have one vendor come in and try to save us some money because they all get the one gig for all three playgrounds? Yeah, that's possible. We'll have to talk it through.
Yeah, we want all three playgrounds offline at the same time, for example?
Right.
Those are things.
And it never would be because they only have so much crew to go around. They'd have to start one, finish one, start one, finish one. And quite honestly, they probably, a playground outfit like that is so busy. I don't know that they could schedule everything in one year. But again, I don't really know. It's just a guess.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone have any more questions on the playgrounds?
Yeah, Del, yeah, I have not heard any updates, but I don't know if Pam has or you have regarding, I know that I think Monica had engaged with federal to see if there's any possibility they would be willing to, to actually help us as a town for the McGuan redevelopment.
I have not, I knew all about that. And I know she reached out to them and also Palmer's, but I have not heard back.
Okay.
I heard I mean, we can double back on that, but I had heard they felt like they already gave their pound of flesh on something else. So, but we can definitely go back and ask that question.
Got it.
Any other questions? If not, let's move on to the paddle court, which is in the it's $155,000. It's in the 6-year capital improvement plan. So what can you tell me about paddle court? Why do we need it?
So the paddle courts are at an all-time high of use. And people have been asking for an additional court for quite a few years. We put the additional court in the capital improvement plan and our commission pushed it out a year. And ultimately it made it in this list. As we all know, last year we brought in $102,000 worth of revenue, over which I think the year before was $62,000. This year we're headed quite high, just as much. We haven't finished yet, but it's really busy. People can't get all the spots that they want, so an additional court would be phenomenal. This is the opportunity to have that. And Jack, somebody asked a question about the ledge in the back, and we have 5 courts. So this additional ask would be the 6th court. And the 6th court would not need to go into the ledge. It's a tight fit. The quote is based on that tight fit, but it can be done. And then if we were to request a 7th court in the future, that's where ledge would have to be blasted.
Thank you for answering that. The ledge question was mine because I had heard that could be an issue, and that's.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions on the paddle court?
Can you tell me can you just reiterate for everyone the seasonality of the paddle court?
Sure. The season of the paddle court is October, like maybe mid-October through end of March. And when the paddle tennis courts close, and keep in mind, people are starting to play from April through October as well. But they don't have to reserve anything at that point. They just go and play. But we have started to turn the lights on for them at night. The ball handles differently from the winter months, and that's where it handles really well versus the spring, summer months. Typically, the minute that the paddle hut closes, that's when the bathrooms close up, and then the bathhouse on the beach, their bathrooms open. It's a kind of an opposite schedule, excuse me. And then we start with the paddle hut renting for birthday parties, all different types of reunions, weddings, things like that at the paddle hut really begin April 1st through October.
We do not need the employee for the rental, right? It's just during the paddle season. Is that correct?
No, we need our permanent part-time paddle employees for any rental of the facility throughout the whole year.
So it would be one-offs each time there's a rental, but we don't have somebody dedicated down there once the official paddle season ends.
Correct. They're there just strictly to open the building, guide the party, and close the building.
Yeah. Okay, then we'll move on to water fountains.
Okay, so water fountains, again, you can pick a water fountain that's very inexpensive or a water fountain that's, $10 or $12,000. So this is a happy medium. Someone in today's questions, I listed the fountains that we have working right now that we would be replacing. I think Adele, you asked about Pear Tree, whether we would consider doing that, replacing it. Again, I think that's a commission question about how much money we are wanting to put back into the facility, right? So where the project is at. So there's a lot of moving little pieces there. But would these funds be able to handle a installation at Pear Tree? I believe that it would. Again, you take that money and you have to decide. Like for instance, at Cherry Lawn, I'd be looking at putting a water fountain that would help the humans and help the dogs. So you'd have a unit on the bottom and a unit at the top. So much different than you would at, say, Baker or McGuan or Tilly.
Any other questions, guys?
Well, I'm concerned about Pear Tree because of the children of the camps that go down there. And in the heat of the summer, a couple of years ago, when we eliminated that drinking fountain, they were filling their water bottles in the shower stall. So I do think that there has got to be some way in which to provide some kind of drinking water for these children at the camps. If the camps are going to pay us to come into our beaches and use our facility, I would hope that we'd be able to provide them with some water, especially on 95-degree days when these kids are hot. And
thank you, Arpa, Cheryl. Thank you, Arpa. I think we're going to get a water fountain.
Well, I'm hoping that Pam just said it's up to the commission to make that decision. And I'm just voicing my opinion when you have 40 young kids down there on a given day at camp looking to fill their water bottles. Just saying.
Right, and I have to double back with that because of the enormous amount of discussions over Pear Tree in terms of how much money we're actually going to put into the facility. So we did just replace all the sinks and the faucets in the facility. So again, it's a formal ask. I want to make sure before I say anything here publicly, I would go through the commission to make sure that was factual.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't blame you for that, Pam. I agree with you on that one. You have to, ask the commission. But in the meantime, while we're trying to sort things out, I think that if the camps are going to use our beach, we need to provide some water somehow.
I believe that the concession will be selling water as well, but I agree with you, Cheryl. Yes.
I have a quick question. Was there a reason why they were eliminated in the first place at Pear Tree?
The piping was rotting and they were leaking, and they didn't want to. They felt that it was a disaster taking them out and having to deal with the plumbing underneath.
Oh, just seems like a priority. It's kind of like a basic human need, air and water. Whatever. Okay.
Okay. Moving on to the Baker Swings installation, which is approved by the Board of Selection for this coming budget that we've been looking at, the 22-23 budget. I just asked Pam about, because it's what exactly we have to do to
right. It seems like a large number, and certainly let's go back to vendors. Getting a budgeted number. So I didn't go out to bid. I didn't request various quotes. So is it possible that someone could put it in for 9,000? Possible, but this is the budgetary number that I had received. So with that, I met the vendor down at the park, and if our guys did all the work, he could probably come in. Oops, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, because I couldn't hear Adele. Okay, so the vendor could come in if our guys did all the work and just install the swing set for approximately 5,000. Adele, I can't hear you.
Okay, Pam, you're breaking up.
Adele,
let me-
you're breaking up.
Let me move. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay now?
We can hear you.
I'm going to slow network connect webcam. Maybe it'll show me.
Yeah, Pam is fine. Adele, it's you are
Okay.
breaking up,
Turn
unfortunately.
off your cameras.
Yeah. Pam, can you
Oh, is it
detail
me?
for
Okay,
us?
all right then.
Could you please detail for us what you mean by this for everyone so they understand what the
Oh, I
prep
see.
work is? So for example, we have the equipment that can go in and dig out the area behind the existing playground area to help prep it. We can lay down some of the soil that we have from elsewhere in town. Is that what you mean? And that helps to set it. And then these guys just come in, this vendor would install it.
Well,
But-
part of that's correct, Patty. But that's if our crew were to have the time to do it. They
Right.
don't.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
when we were discussing this project, we were like, okay, look, our guys have so much to do. Let's go out and get a professional bid and quote. And that's what that number is. This is with our guys having to do nothing with it. They are not playground specialists.
Right.
You know, so
Agreed.
in terms of, and I want to just clarify, if you go to Baker Park, the playground area has timbers that designate the playground area with manufactured wood chips. So there is no area for a swing set right now. That existing area would have to be expanded and at the same grade level as the current playscape as an extension. So there's some good digging, grading, leveling, filling work to be done prior to any type of installation. And that's the reason why it got pretty expensive. People have been, lifting their eyebrows over the expense, but that's one local contractor's price.
Okay. All right, thank
Pam,
you.
if I
Can you hear
might
me now, Patty?
No, go ahead, Patty.
Oh, no, I think Jack, I was just going to say the other thing is that I recognize that sometimes, I mean, that's the benefit of having, the trucks at Parks and Rec and Public Works. They can work together on some of these things. But Baker is a challenging area because it is on a hill. The playground is already kind of on a hill and we're looking to do it behind it. And I know, I mean, we have these swings sitting here waiting to get installed. Our guys have so much work to do with all the fields that they're going to be setting up down the line that for me it seems and I'm a penny pincher, but for me it seems like it would be the most efficient way to do it by paying a little bit more to an outside vendor versus pulling our guys off to do it and then they don't get the other projects completed. That's just my opinion.
So
Can
I want to go and build on that.
Everybody, excuse me, Jack, just a second. Can I ask everybody to turn off their camera? Okay, and then when you want to say something, flip on your, thank you, because it's just breaking down. Okay, Patty, you too. Bill, turn off your camera. Okay, you too, Diane. Everybody turn them off because everybody's starting to break up on me and I don't want to lose you. Okay, all right, now Jack, you have a question.
So this is one of the things that I mentioned at the Board of Selectmen. When we go and do Baker's Park down the road to make it into with the poured surface, my question is, because Baker is up on a hill, will part of the plan include a path if we're making it ADA compliant or allowing somebody in a wheelchair to get there? To have a path to get there, because right now there isn't one. And again, as Patty mentioned, and I'm familiar with, it's up on a little bit of a height. So it just a question for down the road when the plan for Baker's comes to fruition.
Good point, Jack. Good point.
So I'd like to answer that. So good point,
Okay.
Jack. But if you do go to Baker, The playground itself sits just below the hill. That's been regraded into the hill, and then you'd have to walk up the hill if you were exiting it, or you would walk over to the parking lot, which is still flat. So there is an area that can be designed to have an ADA accessibility route that is outside of the hill. But yes, to everybody's point, behind the playground, there is a large hill, but not to the side of it.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you, Pam.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
All right.
Okay, so,
And I think the last is the picnic tables.
oh, I have a question on Baker.
Oh, Cheryl, you had it. Go, Cheryl.
Okay, so if my memory serves me well, which is questionable numerous times of the year, the hill is there because when Baker School was knocked down, they buried the school. So the hill is there covering the remnants of the school. But that can be checked out by a couple of my old cronies who are still living in town. So that's the issue with the hill. On the other hand, Pam, I want to go back, and yes, there's a drinking fountain there, and then to the left-hand side towards Norotan Avenue, there's a flat area that could be made ADA accessible to the playground. Now, when you talk about the swing set, and yes, I call them railroad ties around the playground, those will be removed and then expanded to encompass the swing set? Or are you going to put the swing set in back of the playground area where the little blue dinosaur is? I'm not quite clear as to where you're putting the swing set.
The actual railroad ties will be moved on the far end of the playscape. And there's a flat area just beyond the playscape that is in between two trees. So it would not be in front of the playground. It would be to the, if you were staring at the playground, it would be to the left side of the playground with your back to Norotan Avenue.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll try to speed this along since have we hit most of your let's see, picnic tables is the last thing on my list, and that's just replacing picnic tables. And I asked if Pam if we had any, we're adding any locations, and what this is to replace the wooden picnic tables that we have in our various parks. It's just it's replacement.
Correct.
Okay, are there any other questions, guys? Since we seem to be having trouble with our connectivity on the, is that right? Okay.
Pam,
That's
are they
correct.
different? Are they made of a different are they wooden as well and they're just new wooden ones, or are they made of a different material?
In my opinion, we'd go with the recycled material.
I think you're freezing, Pam, but maybe it's just me.
In the land of sustainability,
Anybody else with a question could.
I'd go with a recycled material. Did everyone hear that?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Uh-oh. Wait, Adele, can you hear us?
Anyone else with a question here? On any of the, that's it.
I think we're good, Adele.
Is it me? Is it my problem?
It's never your problem, but it is kind of your problem today.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, well, thank you, Pam.
Thank you for having me. I hope that clarified a lot of things.
Everybody's breaking up when they're talking for me.
Great job, Pam.
Thank you.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the Park and Rec ARPA?
I just
It did, Pam. Thank you so much for your patience, too.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam. I'll make a motion to
night.
approve the ARPA. Can you hear me? I'll make a motion to approve the ARPA funding for the Parks and Rec.
Is there a second?
Second,
Who's second?
Second is
Carol.
Cheryl. Okay. Thank you.
Cheryl. Cheryl. All those opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Somebody?
Yes.
Patty?
Hear you.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay,
I want to thank everyone for approving the ARPA. Thank you.
next thing on our list was, I thought,
Thanks, Jack.
thanks, Jack. Thanks for your help, Jack. Shall we move on, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. I just thought we probably ought to review the what's left of a capital improvements request if ARPA is approved, because there were two, both the McGuan and the Baker swing installation is part of our capital request for this year. So that will come if this list is approved by the Board of Finance. I'm glad you're hearing me very well now. Thank you, Patty. If this is approved by the Board of Finance, then they will remove, if the ARPA list is approved by the Board of Finance, in which they're going to review this on Wednesday and probably vote, tomorrow night, and probably vote, then those two things will be removed from our capital request. So I just wanted to look at and make sure everybody knew what was still in our capital request once the ARPA things come out, and that would be the $100,000 for the tennis court resurface at Cherry Lawn. That's $100,000 to be added to the $250,000 that was appropriated last year to make it sufficient to rebuild the tennis courts at Cherry Lawn. There would be an installation of an irrigation valve at Baker Park. There's an installing a ductless air conditioning in the concession building at Meade. That's to go into the to go into where the refrigeration is, to keep the temperature down there. You know, it's to protect the machinery that's in there. And last is the $5,000, which is a small capital, which I think we get each year, sort of for miscellaneous things. So, does anybody have any questions about this year's capital or anything else about the budget? And I know Jenny's here, and she sent me a list of F&B questions that includes operating as well as capital, as well as the ARPA funds. And I told her we had talked about operating back in January when we had Pam then. So I sent her questions along to Pam so that she can answer them, and hopefully we'll all benefit from it. But I believe we've heard it, and so that's why, unless anybody has any questions right now on operating, I'm not going to talk about operating. Anybody has a question, turn their mic on and say
Adele?
something now.
Adele, I have a quick one that I'll copy you on and send to Pam as well. But it came up based upon this conversation. As we move forward, putting in the new surfaces at the various playgrounds, I would suspect that the wood chips and the other things that we're using to replace the existing surfaces might be a future budget savings. I don't know how much it is, but I'm just putting it out there, and I'll copy you and send to Pam just to understand what that might be. Might not adjust this year's budget that we're looking at 23, but potentially by 24, there might be some incremental savings.
That's a good point, Jack, and we can ask the folks over at Meade Park if they're seeing those savings based on their changes to porn play.
Yeah, it's not just the materials, but also from reading the write-ups that Pam supplied, is that the overall maintenance of keeping it clean and other things like that reduces the amount of time that the parks maintenance group needs to work there. That's not saying that that's complete savings, because I know that they have many other things to accomplish. It just provides incremental time available.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question. Hello?
It's Adele. I'm back.
Hi, this is Sheila. May I ask a question?
Sure. I've missed. I got dropped, so I've just dialed back in.
Speaking of the different surfaces, reminds me, I don't think it's been mentioned anywhere, repairing the surface on, I guess you would call it the tennis practice area behind the courts at Weed, where you can hit a ball against the wall. It's badly cracked all over.
I actually think that was brought to the attention of the commission when during the budget process. So that's all I can say.
Okay, maybe whoever's on that committee can note it.
I think that would be for what you're talking about. That would be for Weed Beach. I don't.
Yeah.
Okay. As you guys can tell, I'm having problems here. So I have dialed in, but I cannot see anyone. And so.
Well, we all have our cameras off, so you're not missing much.
That's funny. Okay. All right then. But what I can't see is I can't even see if you're turning your mics on. So, all right.
So you're moving through operating, basically, Adele, and I think we're in good shape. Jack's only comment was saying why if you might have missed, his comments were, we may gain additional savings by year 2024 with surfaces like port and play on the playgrounds, because it won't take as long to maintain it. And so that could be additional cost savings. And then otherwise, besides Sheila's comment, and Sheila, we can follow up on that.
Sure.
What we call the backstop tennis thing. I mean, it's not in the budget for now, but that doesn't mean we can't go looking for a nice little donation from somebody to kind of get that done down the line. So
Good.
Okie doke. So with that, I'd like to move on to, let's see where we are. Boy, this is disconcerting, I have to say. But I'm glad I have a phone as well as a computer. That's good too. So update on the next on our agenda is the update on the commission's committee working groups, and of which there are 4. And there's a weed group, which Adele, Patty, and Chris Noonan are a part of. And then there's an invasive that only Patty volunteered for. And then there's the playgrounds, which is Sarah Baldwin and Alyssa Mahoney, and Patty joined that today, which was good she did, because we really found out about it at the last minute. And so next meeting of the playgrounds group, they'll have much better notice on that. And then the pear tree, but the pear tree group is Patty, Cheryl, Chris, Sandy, and Vincent. And would one of you guys like to do an update on the last pear tree group meeting? That would be.
Sure, Adele, I'd be happy to.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, last meeting over at the library and also via Zoom, we not only continue to discuss different opportunities, and I think it was very well attended, not only with the Pear Tree Point working group, but also we did have Adele and we had Lori with us. Our next meeting is going to be the 23rd, next Wednesday. But it was interesting, getting to hear about some of the, not only opportunities, but also, getting to hear about plans that have happened in the past and some of the challenges that we still continue to have with FEMA as well. And definitely heard some new plans and thoughts. I feel like, Cheryl had actually brought some interesting ideas of ways that we could continue to work around with the existing building and improve it. And I think we have more questions that will continue to need answers coming up next Wednesday.
Okay. Thank you.
I would also say it is open. If anyone is interested, feel free. We're at the library upstairs. I would say open to as many individuals as they would like to come in. I think the more voices we have on this, the better.
Okay. I think it's on the website. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. It's posted. So, and it's also being recorded as well.
Yep.
Okay. Patty, you kind of gave the update for the playgrounds during the other discussion. Anything else you needed to add?
No, we will be meeting again in 2 weeks, but I think it's that we definitely have our marching orders in terms of doing our research, which is the right next step as we wait to find out the funding.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And your invasives, I can't remember when the meeting is going. Thank you.
March 26th, and it's Mary
Okay.
Louise Morgan, Amy Doring, myself, and Laura Mosher, which is wonderful, who had done the parks tour and given us all that wonderful feedback on the invasives prior, last April or so. And then we're walking with Jimmy Ma, who's a tree expert, and has tagged all the trees at Cherry Lawn for us as well.
Oh wow, he's done it. Oh wow, because he said he was going to do it when we were on the parks tour last fall. So that's terrific that he's done it. That's terrific. Okay. Yeah.
Quick question.
Sure.
This is Alyssa. Patty, do you have the date of the next playground working group meeting? Was it set, or are we waiting for it still?
Alyssa, I have it in another notebook, and I will happily email it to you when we finish this meeting. I just otherwise I have to move to a different room, but I'm happy to get that right back to you.
That would be great. And if there's anything from I didn't know about the meeting, that's why I wasn't on this morning. But if there's anything that I can be working on in the meantime before the next meeting, then just let me know. If there was anything on there that nobody had volunteered to help out with.
Okay, great. I took a lot of notes, so I'll type them up and I'll just send them to you. How's that sound?
Perfect. That would be great. Thank you so much
for volunteering.
The weed group, I think, has met, but we weren't included on that. I think somewhere along the way, our volunteerism didn't quite make it to the people that needed to know, and so now they have, and so now everybody should be getting notice when there's a meeting. I know that the weed group, that there is going to was reported at the last commission meeting, and they'll be talking about it again at this commission meeting, that they had a meeting with the DAF, and they and with Weston and Sampson, and Weston and Sampson's going back and relooking at the designs, and they're looking for some reduction in dollars, and so it's to be continued. So they don't have that yet, or not that I know of anyway. Now for the chairman's report, which is, I was going to say the invasive meeting is on March 26th. That's where I wrote it down, Patty. There you go. I guess the most important thing for us to talk about, or because all these emails I've been shooting at you about these raised bills in the General Assembly. There are a couple, and you've heard about 5254. There's another one, 5361 coming. 5254 is from the Transportation Committee. 5361 is from Planning and Development. But they're both about beach access. And so I just wanted to let you know that the commission has been working on testimony, and they will be they've got a draft going, and they will I think they're revising it this week, and I think they hope to vote on it on Wednesday. So they really will be doing they're sort of leading the charge for the response from the town, I believe. I mean, many other people have testified individually, but they will be speaking for they're speaking for the Parks and Rec Commission and the parks and Darien and the beaches. Is there anybody that wants to add something to that, Chris? I know Janet Kling on the commission is spearheading this and has been largely responsible for the draft of the testimony that they are going to do. So did you want to add anything, Chris? I know you sent out an email at one point.
No, I would just say, I mean, everyone does have the opportunity to make their voices heard on this.
Yes.
I think it's certainly for coastal towns, something that we've all in. And so, happy to share. I think, Adele, you already did the draft, but if not, how, the commission's moving forward. But this is definitely a uniting bill on our side, with the idea that, Hartford is going to go ahead and say, or tell, coastal towns to let not only out of town, but more importantly, out of state folks into each one of our beaches, and it has to be treated exactly the same. I think that, we've seen a lot of growth in town. I think we continue to see uses of the beaches, and I think that this is a certain overstep, from Hartford. So I would suggest anyone who has an opinion on it and a voice, you can certainly make yourself known. Happy to share more if anybody needs it.
Okay. All right. Well, I've got you. You think this is going to be your last RTM Parks and Rec Committee meeting?
It looks like March 28th, I'm scheduled to meet with Board of Selectmen for the commission interview. So unless we have a special meeting in the next week or so, I believe this might be the last one. But it's been, you all have my contact information, and I will happily, grab coffee with anyone at any time.
Okay. Well, fingers crossed, all goes well, and we thank you for all your contributions.
Thank you so much, Adele.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Patty.
Okie doke. I'll move on to the next thing I wanted to talk about, was the concession for this summer at the beaches. I think everybody knows that Nikki Glikas, I'm saying that right, operated the concessions last year, and she's going to continue and do take care of the concession at Meade, but we'll have a new vendor, Abilis, I believe, Abilis. I wrote it down wrong in my notes. For a pear tree, which they're working on an agreement and plan of action. It's a nonprofit, and I believe they're running the cafe at the library now. And I think they expect the focus will be on grab and go items, ice cream, things like that. So that's still in process. The contract's not signed yet. That's working info as we move along there. They're still working on the gazebo project. I think Pam has in her notes for the commission meeting of this week that they've received a reasonable quote from the company that built the security gate at Pear Tree. And so they're talking with the family. So they're still working on that. That's in process. So, which is good. The Weed Beach Meadow Trails project, I think I just gave you the update on that they're waiting to hear back from Weston and Sampson. They have a new security company this summer that will be at the beaches. They received 4 bids and they hired the lowest bidder. So fingers crossed, hope it's good. Pam already told you they're replacing all the sinks at Pear Tree in the bathrooms, and that the she didn't say this, the summer program registrations are really, really good, you know. And the paddle, though they had a dip in the middle of the season, I think they think they're going to come out about where they were last year. They definitely felt Omicron in the winter. You know, it cut down on some of the numbers. And the last bit of news is that the Something Sweet is coming up, which is where local eateries in Darien participate in a competition for desserts around, you know. So I think that, March 26th is what I have written down. So that is coming up, and there's some other bits and pieces, but those are the highlights that I have. Is there any other business?
Can I say one thing, Adele?
Sure.
Just an FYI, but it does give a shout out to Parks and Recs. I'm working with the Community Fund of Darien, and we're running a project the weekend of April 1st. And the reason I'm telling you guys this is it's called Mission Possible. And we raise money and then the money goes to charity. But what's cool about it is we're basically making a town-wide scavenger hunt where people sign up as teams and then go through an app called Goose Chase, where they download that and then they get all their missions. So it'll be a 3-day thing from April 1st, Friday at 3 o'clock through Sunday at 3 o'clock. And the reason I'm mentioning this is one of the things that we're doing is I'm going to have a mission at every one of the parks and beaches. So we're trying to get as many people into our parks, into our beaches, and have quotes or take photographs in front of certain items, or, you know, go in past the Darien Nature Center and look for a specific tree and things like that. So it should be fun, and just keep your eye out for it. Thank you.
That's good. That sounds like fun, actually. It's a clever idea too.
Chris Filmer gave us 3 amazing Mission Possible things. So I can't tell you what they are now because then people would know. But I'll tell you about them post event. But they're fun.
Okie doke.
Hattie, I think that sounds phenomenal.
Yeah, it does.
It really does.
Who is that talking? Sorry.
Kim, sorry, it's Kim Kiner.
Oh, good, Kim. Thank you. Sorry. Does anybody else have any other business, folks? It's just got to blurt it out if you do. Okay. I apologize that we had transmission problems tonight. I don't think it's ever been quite this severe, but I think I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Do you need to approve the minutes?
You're right. I forgot the minutes. Thank you. Minutes for, may I have a motion to approve the minutes for February 9th? Okay. Who was that?
Cheryl.
Cheryl moved. Second?
I'll second it.
Who was that?
Kim.
Okay, Kim. Thank you. All those opposed? Any abstentions? And that's unanimous. Okay, folks, you don't have to have been there to approve. So now I will take a motion to adjourn.
So made.
And
Second.
Okay, could you guys identify yourselves when you say?
Was Chris
That was
Taylor?
Chris. Yep.
Chris Taylor made the motion. Second was?
Andy.
Is it Alyssa?
Sandy Savage seconded.
Great.
All opposed? I think that's unanimous.
Okay.
Good night, everybody. Hopefully it works better next time.
Good night.
I-
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you all. Good night.